What if the United States had never united? Well, Alexander Hamilton paints that picture in Federalist Paper No. 8. And what he says, it's not freedom, it's actually fear. He warns that without the Constitution, America would become a chain of armed nations, each guarding its borders, each terrified of each other, each slowly sacrificing liberty in the name of security. This is the Federalist Papers at their very darkest and the most prophetic. I'm Matt Haskell, I'm a high school history teacher, and in this series we're going through each and every one of the Federalist Papers, all 85 of them, and we're up to Federalist No. 8, and this is another Alexander Hamilton work. So in No. 7, Hamilton explained why disunion would lead to war. Now in No. 8, he shows what comes after that war, how fear reshapes nations, how liberty erodes, and how militarization changes everything. And he's not just warning about external threats. He's describing the psychology of internal division. So his thesis is rather simple, and it's rather chilling too. Safety from external danger is the most powerful director of national conduct. So, in other words, when people feel unsafe, they will trade liberty for security. So, if America at this time splits into rival confederacies, constant border tension will make each government more militarized, more centralized, and more oppressive. The people will invite the tyranny that they actually fear. So Hamilton turns to Europe as his example again. For centuries, the nations of Europe lived in constant war or preparation for war. You had standing armies, you had fortified cities, you had enormous taxes. All of these things were for defense. And then what happened? Well, freedom suffered. Monarchs gained power. Ordinary citizens became used to obedience and not independence. And Hamilton writes that this same pattern would inevitably repeat if in America, if it divided. So now some of the anti-federalists had argued that geography would protect the states, that oceans and rivers made large wars unlikely. But Hamilton flips that idea on its head. He says, geography, he says, is exactly what would make border wars inevitable, that the states are close together, they share rivers and mountain passes and trade routes, and no ocean separates Virginia from Pennsylvania. And so if disunion comes, every river becomes a frontier, and every fort that's been constructed becomes a threat. And then once fear sets in, Hamilton warns that every state will build standing armies, and they won't be for conquest, they'll be for survival. And once armies exist, well, they never go away. They become habits, then necessities, and then instruments of control. So Hamilton writes that soldiers that are used to obedience will begin to shape the spirit of the government, and the people used to watching them will lose the spirit of liberty. He calls this the military despotism of necessity. Well, Hamilton isn't anti-defense in his argument. He's actually anti-fear. He knows that a young republic must defend itself, but he warns that constant fear transforms republics into garrisons, and the very structures built for protection, the forts, the standing armies, the executive authority, they all slowly expand until liberty becomes secondary to safety. So it's a lesson that echoes well beyond the 18th century. Here's what Hamilton becomes rather psychological in his argument as well. He says that nations surrounded by enemies become accustomed to war. They start to see soldiers and increased taxes and surveillance as normal. And once people accept militarization as normal, well, freedom erodes not by coup, but by comfort. Despotism, Hamilton says, creeps in under the pretense of defense. So, Hamilton uses some rather vivid imagery in his argument. You have a landscape that's dotted with fortresses, young men who are permanently in uniform, commerce strangled by the different checkpoints that are erected. You have liberty eroded by standing orders and standing armies. It's a warning about what happens when fear becomes policy. And he's reminding his audience that peace isn't just the absence of war, it's the absence of constant preparation for war. So, the solution, once again, is union. One large, stable republic can maintain peace eternally and avoid the fear that spirals, that leads into militarism. Disputes can be settled through law, not by cannon fire. Security can come from structure, not suspicion. And Hamilton's genius is, well, it's to link liberty and scale. The bigger the union, the smaller the chance that fear governs us. Now, Federalist number 8 reads like it could have been written, yesterday. The balance between liberty and security remains one of democracy's hardest questions. In every era, wartime, peacetime, the digital age, the same trade-off returns. How much freedom will we surrender to feel safe? And Hamilton's answer through this is consistent. The best defense of liberty is not a fortress. It's a well-designed union. So let's once again, let's tighten the argument down, summarize this for you guys doing the homework, right? So first of all, we can get this into 5 points. First, disunion breeds border conflict. The second point would be conflicts breed standing armies. The third thing would be armies breed fear and dependency. 4, fear breeds authoritarian habits. And 5, only union can break that chain. That's the Federalist number 8, all in 5 bullet points. But if we want to take away anything from this, we can say first that fear is politically powerful because it justifies everything. The second point would be that security without liberty eventually destroys both. And then finally, the third point would be that the union's greatest gift isn't strength, it's actually peace of mind. And so, Federalist 8 is Hamilton's reminder that republics don't fall all at once. They fade slowly, law by law, fear by fear, until the people forget they were ever free. And the Constitution, Hamilton believed, was the structure that could stop that decay. Not because it was perfect, but because it made fear unnecessary. So I'm Matt Hasquin, and here's another one of those things that you should know by being alive. If this made you think about liberty and security in a new way, please share it. Follow along, share it with friends that need to hear this message, and I'll be back to give you Federalist number 9. That's where Hamilton finally shifts from warnings to hope and explains how the new Constitution can actually preserve freedom. Thank you for watching.